challenges for Pakistan on the water front. Reduction in water availability, as you saw from the water budget of Pakistan, that because of the losses, you see that reduced quantity of water that is actually available at the farm gate. Plus, we have the competition of irrigation water use with other uses of water, such as the domestic and industrial water supply. So this has resulted in reduction in water availability. Inadequate storage capacity. So in Pakistan, we do not have enough storages so that we can store the water and then use it for meeting different water demands. That is why we are trying to construct more dams. Outdated and wasteful irrigation practices. So the different methods of water application to the crops, these are actually wasteful practices. We are wasting huge quantity of water than is actually required by the plants at a particular time. Unregulated groundwater pumping. As I said before, that for sustainability of the groundwater resources, the discharge of the groundwater should be less or at maximum equal to the recharge of the groundwater. Under that condition, if we pump the groundwater, then it will be fine, because the recharge takes place, the same quantity of water is discharged, or less quantity is discharged, still it is fine. But if the quantity of water discharge is more than the recharge, what will happen? It will cause depletion of the groundwater resources. So in Pakistan, we have unregulated groundwater pumping. It should be regulated so that we can make the use of groundwater resources sustainable. We can use it and our future populations can also use it. Water quality issues. So the water that is supplied for domestic purposes, not all of the water that is treated. You see, for example, in Peshawar, so we consider the quality of water good. So that's why it is pumped and directly supplied to the consumers. But in other areas, if the groundwater that is contaminated, and if it is supplied for domestic or industrial water supply, it will have health hazards. So this water quality, and the reason is that because from the agricultural lands, we are using these fertilizers and pesticides. These are mixed with the water, and then the water infiltrates into the soil and joins through percolation the groundwater, so it becomes polluted. This is a big issue that is faced. So this water quality is also a major challenge that is faced in Pakistan. Lack of water budgeting and water conservation. The water that is available and the water that is used for different purposes, we should have a good water budget for everything. That how much quantity of water is available and how much quantity of water is used for domestic purposes, for industrial purposes, for agriculture purposes. and lack of water conservation. The different water saving strategies that we can use to save the water. So we have lack of water conservation, inadequate financial resources for water infrastructure and development of water resources. So in Pakistan, we have not allocated enough financial resources for development of water infrastructure and development of water resources. That includes the storage reservoirs, etc., that we need to construct in order to store the water and then use the same water during water storage shortages. So in Pakistan, we have inadequate financial resources for water infrastructure and development of water resources. Similarly, the climate change impacts. As you might know that the global warming, because of the greenhouse gases concentration that is increasing in the atmosphere, such as the carbon dioxide which is released from the industries and from the vehicles, etc. So these gases, they increase the temperature of the surface of the earth, because the radiation which is coming from the sun, it strikes the earth and then it is reflected back. So these gases, they do not allow that and keep it within the atmosphere. That results in increasing the temperature. This is global warming, that the temperature of the surface of the earth is increasing. So when the temperature is increasing, what will be its effect on the water resources? What will be its effect on the crop yield? So that we need to determine, and we should find out ways and means how to deal with these impacts of climate change. Absence of regional cooperation in management of water resources. So as we discussed that in India and Pakistan, the rivers, they are transboundary. Although we have the Indus Water Treaty, but still there are issues between Pakistan and India over the water sharing. Similarly, between the provinces of Pakistan, we have the Water Apportionment Accord of 1991, but still there are issues between the provinces over the water sharing. So this requires that we strengthen the regional cooperation in management of water resources, so that all the stakeholders, they are on board and we share the water in such a way that all the stakeholders, they are satisfied. Otherwise it will result in conflict. So these are the different challenges for Pakistan on the water front. Now, irrigation system management institutions in Pakistan. Managing institutions at federal level, we have this Ministry of Water and Power, Indus River System Authority, Federal Flood Commission, Planning Commission, Water and Power Development Authority. So at the federal level, these are the different institutions clear that are directly, indirectly involved in the irrigation system management. All these, they have their own websites on which you can find the information about the completed projects, the ongoing projects, their activities, annual reports. Managing institutions at provincial level. So at the provincial level, we have Punjab Irrigation Department, we have Sindh Irrigation Department, KPK Irrigation Department, and we have Balochistan Irrigation Department. So in every province, we have irrigation department. Also at the provincial level, we have provincial irrigation and drainage authorities, such as the Punjab Irrigation and Drainage Authority, Sindh Irrigation and Drainage Authority, KPK Irrigation and Drainage Authority, and Balochistan Irrigation and Drainage Authority. So all these departments, they have their own websites. For example, KPK Irrigation Department, you can visit their website. You will find all the details about the completed projects, the ongoing projects related to irrigation in KPK. So these are the managing institutions. Now, average water use for cereal crops, food, cereal crops. You can see here that in USA, they are producing 1.56 kg of food per cubic meter of irrigation water. Canada is producing 8.72 kg of food per cubic meter of irrigation water. If we compare the Asian countries, you can see that China is able to produce 0.82 kilogram of food per cubic meter of irrigation water. India is producing 0.39 kg of food per cubic meter of irrigation water, and you can see here in Pakistan that we are only producing 0.13 kg of food per cubic meter of irrigation water. And the reasons we already discussed, that the system that we have is need to be upgraded, and the water application methods should use the latest technology that can result in saving more water and can produce more food per cubic meter of irrigation water. So you see that Pakistan has the largest continuous irrigation system in the world, but the crop yield, that is lowest in the world. Next, we discuss about the types of irrigation. So irrigation can be divided into surface irrigation, where we supply the water to the crops on the surface of the earth as the water flows due to gravity and irrigate the land. And we have the subsurface irrigation, that is through a system of underground pipes. The water is supplied to the root zone. So we have the subsurface. Below the ground surface, we supply the water to the root zone. So that is subsurface irrigation. Now, surface irrigation, it can be divided into flow irrigation, that is the flow occurs due to the gravity in open channels, and it can be lift irrigation, where the water is lifted by mechanical means, for example pumping. the water that we pump from wells, tube wells. So that is lift irrigation. Now flow irrigation can be further divided into perennial irrigation. Perennial irrigation means that throughout the crop period, a continuous and adequate quantity of water that is available to the crops. Like we say perennial river, it means that throughout the year the water is available in that river. So perennial irrigation, in which throughout the crop period a continuous and adequate quantity of water that is available, so that is known as perennial irrigation. The second one, we have inundation or flood irrigation. So in this case, the area of the land on which we grow the crops, that is actually flooded. The soil moisture that supplies the water to the root zone to the crops, and additionally the rainfall contributes the supply of the water. So that is known as inundation or flood irrigation. And this flow irrigation, this can be direct irrigation, that is from the river we divert the water through canal, so we have diversion scheme. Or we have storage irrigation, we construct a dam, we store the water, so that is the storage scheme. Or it can be a combination of both, storage and diversion scheme. So when we have flow irrigation system, it can be either a diversion scheme, storage scheme, or it can be a combination of both. Subsurface irrigation can be further divided into natural subsurface irrigation. In natural subsurface irrigation, we have leakage water from channels goes underground, may irrigate crops sown on lower lands by capillarity. So this can sometimes happen that we have water channels from where leakage of water goes underground and may irrigate crops sown on lower lands, in which case it will be called as natural subsurface irrigation. And we have artificial subsurface irrigation. So in artificial subsurface irrigation, when a system of open jointed drains is artificially laid below the soil to supply water to the crops by capillarity. So you can see here we have a network of open jointed drains, and they supply water to the root zone that is taken by the plants for their growth. This is artificial subsurface irrigation. Now you can see here that in subsurface irrigation, below the surface we have this network of pipes, and they supply water to the root zone, and this is how the plants take up the water and grow. You can see here, but this is not only expensive to install, but the maintenance of such system becomes challenging. Although it is practiced, but if there is any blockage, then it becomes very difficult to carry out the maintenance of such systems. But anyhow, it is artificial subsurface irrigation. Next, we discuss the different methods of irrigation water distribution in the farms. Once the water reaches the agricultural fields, how the water is distributed, by which methods to the crops. This we will discuss in this topic. So irrigation water may be applied to the crops by various methods that include free flooding, border flooding, check flooding, basin flooding, furrow irrigation method, sprinkler irrigation method, and drip irrigation method. So these are the methods by which water can be distributed in the farms. So we will discuss briefly each of these methods. Now, choice of irrigation method, how we use the different methods to supply water to the crops. So the choice of irrigation method, the following criteria should be considered. Water supply available. Is the water available abundantly, or the water availability is scarce, means that less quantity of water that is available for agriculture. So based on which we can select the suitable method. Topography of the area to be irrigated, what kind of land is there, is it a hilly area or a plain area? Climate of the area, soils of the area, what type of soils are there? In climate, if for example we have more rainfall, consequently the method for water application should be such that it can supply less quantity of water as required by the crops. If the climate is arid, semi-arid as we discussed earlier, then in that case the water requirements that will be more by the crops. Soils of the area, that what type of soils are there, more permeable soil, less permeable soil. What type of crops are to be grown, this is important. The overall economics of the system, when we provide an irrigation system for any agricultural project, we have to check the economics, what is the cost, and then the returns that we will get from the system. Is it cost effective? And the local traditions and skills. If we are using latest technology, so do we have the skills of the farmers to use that technology? So all these factors, they will affect the choice of any irrigation method or water application to the agricultural land. Now next we start with the free flooding, that is also known as ordinary flooding. So in this method we have the main supply ditch, and then from here we have subsidiary ditches. These are narrow channels of water, and we just flood the area. So that is why it is known as free flooding, also known as ordinary flooding. We just flood the entire surface and no attempt is made to control the flow of water. You can see here, we just simply flood the entire area with the water. So this is an example of free flooding. So we have main supply ditches. These are excavated in the field along the contour or on the slope. Water flows from ditches to subsidiary ditches and then to field. Subsidiary ditches are spaced 20 to 50 meter apart depending upon slope, texture of soil and crops. So these are the factors that will determine the spacing of these subsidiary ditches. But the range is 20 to 50 meter apart. Movement of water in this method is not restricted. It is sometimes called wild flooding. So this was a brief description of the free flooding. Next we have border flooding. So in border flooding you can see that we make these borders. We divide the land into strips. This is how you can see. The land is divided by these borders here into these strips. You can see here. So this is border flooding, and then the area is flooded with water. Land is divided into number of strips separated by low levees called borders. Land area of the strip width varies 10 to 20 meter and length ranges 100 to 400 meter. Ridges between the borders should be sufficiently high to prevent overtopping during irrigation. The land should be perpendicular to the flow to prevent concentration of water on either side of the flow, so that the water uniformly flows over the strip and water does not concentrate on either side of the border. The third one is the check flooding. So in check flooding, we further divide the strips into small plots. You can see here, we have the levees and then we have the cross levees. So it means that the area is further divided into small plots. So you can see that in this method and the border flooding, we have control over the water, because the water will be supplied to each of this plot separately. This is known as check flooding. You can see here, this is an example of check flooding. So the area is divided into small plots. It is similar to free flooding method, except flow is controlled by levees. Levees are constructed along the contours with interval of 5 to 10 meter. Levees are connected with cross levees, so the confined plot area varies from 0.2 to 0.8 hectares. This method is suitable for permeable as well as less permeable soil. If the soil is permeable, so no problem, because we divide the area into plots. If the water quickly infiltrates, the area is small, and for the other plot we still provide water, and it is also suitable for less permeable soil. If the infiltration of water is less, still it is fine. Keep the water on the land for more time so that it is effectively infiltrated to the root zone with the passage of time. Next we have basin flooding. So in basin flooding we have the main ditch that supply the water, and then through subsidiary ditches we supply water to the trees. You can see here on either side. So we have a small basin around each tree where the water is supplied, and that is used by the trees. So this is known as basin flooding. This method is a special type of check flooding and is adopted specially for orchard trees. For those trees that bear fruits, for those trees this method can be adopted. Orchard trees. One or more trees are placed in basin and the surface is flooded as in check method by ditch water. You can see here that one or more trees are placed in basin and surface is flooded by the ditch water. For example, you see the water is flowing and then it will flood this basin here. So this is basin flooding. Next we have furrow irrigation method. In furrow irrigation method, what we do is that furrow or field ditches, they are constructed on the land. We have the water that is flowing in the ditch or narrow channel, and then from here the water only flows in these furrows. Now you can see that as compared to the other flooding methods, the water does not cover the entire surface, but the water only flows in these furrows. And the crops that are grown here, so the water infiltrates into the root zone and supply water to these crops. This is known as furrow irrigation method. So now in here you can see that this method is more efficient than the flooding methods. Why? Because in the flooding method the water floods the entire surface, but in here the water does not flood the entire surface, only the water flows in these furrows. You can see here that only the water flows in these furrows. Water does not flood the entire surface. So it means that this method is more efficient as compared to the flooding technique, because here we can save the water, not the entire surface of the ground that is flooded with water. And moreover, these are suitable for row crops, those crops which can be grow in rows. This method of irrigation is suitable for those crops. Furrows are small channels which carry water down the land slope between the crop rows. Water infiltrates into the soil as it moves along the slope. The crop is usually grown on the ridges or raised beds between the furrows. In flooding methods, water covers the entire surface, while in furrow irrigation method, only 1/5 to 1/2 of the land surface is weighted by water, so it results in less evaporation. Evaporation losses are reduced, and also because not the entire surface is flooded, we are saving water also. Less quantity of water is applied. The furrow method of irrigation is used in irrigation of row crops like potato, maize, sugarcane, cotton, tobacco, with furrows developed between the crop rows in the planting and cultivating processes. So this furrow method, it is used for row crops, those crops which are sown in rows like potato, maize, sugarcane, cotton, tobacco. Next we have sprinkler irrigation method. You can see here the water is sprayed over the crops. So this is sprinkler irrigation method in which we sprinkle the water over the crops. So a sprinkler system conveys water through pipes and applies it with a minimum amount of losses. So you can see here the idea is that just like an artificial rain, we spray the water over the crops. Now in this method, you see that it is more efficient as compared to the previous methods, because in here we just spray the water that can result into saving more water, and we just apply the quantity of water that is required by the plants. Of course, this simple sprinkler system, it sprays the water, so the water is also sprayed over the land surface in addition to the plants, the efficiency is still less than 100% because of that, but this efficiency of this system is greater than the previous methods of water application to the crops. You can see here that in this system we use sprinklers to sprinkle the water, spray the water over the crops. Now in sprinkler irrigation method, water is applied to the soil in the form of a spray through a network of pipes and pumps. It is a kind of artificial rain. It is a costly method. This is now the drawback of this method. You saw that we have to provide a network of pipes and sprinkler systems that will spray the water. So the initial cost and then the operation and maintenance cost, that will be high as compared to the previous method where we just flood the area, supply the water to the crops directly. It can be used for all types of soils and for widely different topographies and slopes, because we spray the water. So that's why this method can be conveniently adopted for widely different topographies and slopes. It can advantageously be used for many crops because it fulfills the normal requirement of uniform distribution of water. Another advantage of this method is that we have uniform distribution of water over the surface. So it can fulfill the requirement of uniform distribution of water. Now, suitability of this method, we have uniform application by artificial rain, good application efficiencies from 70 to 80%, dependent on wind temperature and humidity, fairly terrain independent, but design must take terrain into account. Terrain, the surface, natural topography, the natural ground surface. Can have a low labor content if the system is efficiently running and operating, then it may not require more labor. So this can be an advantage. However, it has more initial cost to install such a system, high maintenance cost due to pumping. We have to maintain this system, so it will have a maintenance cost and can be complex to run. You can see here, to design this sprinkler system, keeping in view the topography of the area. So it will have initial cost and there will be maintenance cost for efficient running of this system to supply water to the crops. And the farmers must have the skills to use such systems. The sprinkler system can be permanent, can be some semi-permanent, can be portable. Permanent means that the whole system is permanent in one area. Just like in the previous video, you saw that it was fixed and just spray the coverage area. We can have semi-permanent where the main pipes are present but the laterals that can be removed, semi-permanent. And in portable means that the whole assembly can be moved from one place to another place. Portable sprinkler irrigation system, that the whole assembly can be moved from one place to another place and used for water application to the crops. How does Saudi Arabia make use of central pivot irrigation? What we mean by this? You can see here that this whole assembly of the sprinkler system, that through the nozzles we spray the water over the area, this moves around a central pivot point, like here. For example, this whole assembly you can visualize here that it is this one here. And this will move all around this area where we grow the crops. It will move all around and then it will come back here and spray water over the entire area of coverage and supply water to the crops. So this is the example of central pivot irrigation system. That's why you can see that in the form of these huge circles we grow the crops, and we have this sprinkler system that move around this central pivot point and then spray the water over the crops. So you can see here that in Saudi Arabia how they are utilizing this central pivot irrigation system to grow the crops. You can see the satellite picture. So the idea here is that if less quantity of water is available, we can use this latest technology to grow more food. Because in the conventional methods of flooding, which are common in Pakistan, we are wasting the water. We are facing reduction in water availability, and then the systems, they are now outdated. That results in wastage of water. If we can adopt these latest technology, we can save a lot of water that we can use for other purposes, or we can bring additional land under cultivation. We can increase the food production. So the idea here is in Pakistan, they say that we are still using these methods because plenty of water is still available. We have Indus River and its tributaries. We are blessed with glaciers in the north that supply water to the rivers. But in the wake of increasing population and increase in water demands, so the water availability will not remain the same in future. So we have to adopt these latest technologies in order to save the water and increase the crop yield. The last one is the drip irrigation method. So in the drip irrigation method, this is a description of the method. You can see that we have to pump the water, for example, from the well. And then after passing the water through the filter and screens to remove any solids or suspended material, then through a network of pipes, the water is supplied to the underneath the plants. Consequently, you can see the cost of installation of this system, but this is the most efficient system. Among all the methods, this is the most efficient system, because you can see here Even in the sprinkler system, we spray the water over the entire land. But in here, we just directly supply the water underneath the plant. So this results in huge quantity of water saving, but it is a costly method. So this is known as a drip irrigation method. You can see here that in the drip irrigation method, remember, it can be a surface, it can be subsurface also. These pipes can be below the surface of the earth, passing through the root zone. Here you can see the surface drip irrigation method, where you see the network of pipes on the surface of the ground, and they just directly supply the water underneath the plants. So you can see the whole area is not flooded. You can see here this area is not flooded with water. So this results in saving of more water. This is the most efficient method in terms of saving water. So this is the drip irrigation method. It is also known as trickle irrigation. It consists of an extensive network of pipes of small diameter that deliver water directly to the soil near the plant. You can see here that it consists of a network of pipes of small diameter that deliver water directly to the soil near the plant. You can see here. The drip nozzles, also called emitters, these are emitters, emit the water, are fixed on laterals at regular intervals of about 0.5 to 1 meter, discharging water at very small rates of the order of 2 to 10 liters per hour. So small pipes supply the water slowly and directly underneath the plants. So these are more efficient methods, but then their installation and operation and maintenance, that can be a big issue or challenging part, why we could not have adopted these systems on large scale in Pakistan. Now, efficiency of the different irrigation methods for water application on the farms. We have less efficient and then we have more efficient methods. So we discussed that this flood irrigation, because we flood the area, it results in wastage of more water. At any particular time, the crop requires certain amount of water, but we are supplying more water than that. So consequently, it is least efficient. Irrigation efficiency is low. Then we studied that in furrow irrigation, the water is only supplied to the furrows, not the entire surface is flooded. So that can result in saving water as compared to the flooding irrigation method. So it means that furrow irrigation is more efficient than the flood irrigation method. Still, we saw that in the sprinkler irrigation, so we spray the water over the area, that can result in saving more water. Just supply the water that is required by the plants. Although the water is sprayed over the land surface also, addition to the plants, but it is more efficient method. And the drip irrigation method, it is the most efficient method, because here we supply directly the water to underneath the plants. This can result in saving more water, and just we supply the water to the plants directly to their roots. Key points for best irrigation method: uniform water infiltration. For the area, there should be uniform water infiltration to the root zone of the crops. Deliver water effectively to the root zone of the crops, because in the root zone where the plants take up the water and use it for their growth. Best method of irrigation will be the one with higher efficiency. As we discussed the efficiency of the different methods, and it should be such that lowest operative cost. When we operate that method, it should have less operative cost, should be cost effective. If it is expensive, then it will not be feasible to use that system. With the lowest cost per acre and per metric ton produced. So it should cause minimum cost per acre and per metric ton produced. So these are the different points for best irrigation method. We studied briefly about the different methods of water application on the farms. Nowadays, there is another term used which is known as precision agriculture. You might have heard the term that is known as precision. That is known as precision agriculture. So in precision agriculture, what the farmers are doing, that they are using information technology that provide continuous information about the climate of that area, that regularly monitors the health of the crops, based on which they determine that how much quantity of water they need to supply and in what amount. So using the information technology, we are able to produce more food per unit of irrigation water. So this is known as precision agriculture.